started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and now...
That's right. We are live.
The ghost faced himself, Brandon Tanev.
This isn't like the start of last season when it was just, it looked like the Canucks were just a beer league team not playing defense at all. And just before Chris goes, no, I'm Chris, you can actually go now.
No, hold on.
We had to give more time for coming on late. So.
I still had, hold on. All right. Chris go, and then I got something else to say at the end.
So, an elf and a midget in 2 back-to-back games. He's definitely on a friendship tour for sure.
Saying, oh yeah, I'm okay with him being, the 6'7" defenseman. No! He is a AHL defenseman right now.
Look, Shonky, don't mind Devin, okay? We all struggle with Devin, so you know.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks. We're also live on Twitter there. Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. Let me say thank you as we have finally hit the 200 subscriber mark today. So thank you to all that have subscribed. Like us. You can also subscribe on our audio, review us, say nice things about us. And of course, you can also catch us on the Area 51 Sports Network. Earlier today, Devin and I did a Flames/Leafs/ fly by the seat of our pants because there were literally at one point 33 trades in the queue at 12:30 Pacific. Trade deadline ended at 12. There were still trades being in the queue that were not processed, including a couple actually that were announced at 3 a couple of hours ago from this conversation. So there's lots to get into. The Canucks were busy here, so this will be more Canucks focused, but we'll talk about the other things that happened in the NHL. It was literally harebrained how much went on throughout the day. But hello, Sean. How are you?
Hello, Kevin. I'm all right. It was one of these days, one of these years, I'll actually fucking remember to book this day off and not have to work, so I'm not distracted while at work. But this is not that year. Everyone probably needed to take the weekend off and just say, okay, forget it. We're just sorry.
Done. Yeah. Imagine though, we're talking first world problems here. And I mean, a lot of this is first world problems, but imagine being a player today and you had a game. In future years, I will criticize the NHL on having games on NHL trade deadline day. This is not the year because of everything that happened with COVID, but I get it. Yes.
It should be prime time as well. It shouldn't be freaking, was it 3:00 Eastern? It should be prime time. Or at least like early prime time so you can have everything going on there.
So you're saying like 6 p.m. instead of 3 p.m. Eastern?
Yeah. Like I would say 5 p.m. Eastern would work. Like you'd have
back 2 hours?
Yeah. Then you could by the time everything's done, you can have a nice recap in prime time. Again, no games. I agree with Kevin. No games should happen at that point if you make it that way. You can that way you can actually make it a spectacle. Right now it's like it's a random Monday in March or February, whatever the season is. And we all know that everyone watches on. It would be a spectacle if you did it sort of late afternoon, early evening.
Yeah, the only thing I was just wondering about is the radio part of it, but I don't know.
Drive home shows, baby.
Yeah, it probably would be. It would be a good drive home show for sure. Yeah, I mean, but what about? There's also reporters that work, with kids that work at. I don't know. I see your point too.
I think you're being you. The most empathetic person that I know outside of Heidi, and
I'm pretty up there too.
No.
I mean, I view myself as a bleeding heart, but okay, I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah, Chris. Only Sean knows you.
Also, hi, Kevin. Before we get too...
No, I was getting
okay.
to you. I'm getting to you. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm not ignoring you. We have a specific conversation that we're going to have. Okay. But we went on a tangent here. And when I drive, we go in the ditch. So okay, we're in the ditch right now. Anyway, go ahead.
I do know that from personal experience on the golf course. So
yeah, that's true. I'll be fascinated to see the ratings. I got the one I mostly got to tell you, Daily Face Off, their live YouTube stream, I thought did a really good job of having good, like if you were looking for coverage of everybody, if you were not focused on one specific team, Daily Face Off was the place for you. Like Sportsnet and TSN, we've had these discussions about how Toronto focused they were, and they were Toronto focused again. And we'll touch on them as I think some of them were planning a Stanley Cup parade with an acquisition that they made. Daily Face Off had people from a number of different teams that they had on, and for a YouTube show, I thought they did very well, and I thought they actually probably were the highlight of the day in terms of the coverage. I think Daily Face Off deserves a lot of kudos.
Like Sean, I wish I could have been able to give more time and focus on that, but fortunately, my supervisor at work is also as hockey crazy as I am, so I was allowed to be on my phone and be like, "Oh, this just broke. Oh, this team just got this guy." So at least I was able to have Sarah Valley as a bell notification on Twitter, so that way every time he tweeted, I got the update.
Yeah, that was good. So hi, Chris.
Hi, Kevin.
Chris, for those that are not listening on any audio, Chris, of course, has the best background out of all of us, but your background's gone.
Yeah, it's currently in boxes because Hannah and I are moving to West Kelowna at the end of the month. So
yes, this
is the only thing that I can really show in the house because the rest is a mess of piles of stuff and boxes and, yeah, a chaotic but somewhat organized mess.
That's to be fair. Yes. Jean-Guy is back, and he, as he says, he did shit all over Dubas in the chat. He did. And Dylan's back. Hi, Sean. Hi, Chris. And he is completely ignoring me because I compared Ricard Raquel to Carly Yarncroc, saying that they're a similar style player, although Ricard Raquel is a better player than Callie Yarncroc. They are very
similar. Elliot Friedman?
They play a similar style.
Considering Dylan ignored you, though, I'm going to say you're Elliot Friedman in like the whole Berkey's like good job thing, but for Dylan's just hi.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll touch on that. Wanted to give a couple of other things here before we begin. Here, shout out to the Greater Vancouver Canadians. All three teams had their season end this week, and won the U18s in the semifinals. U17s, Sean Richards ties the game with 3.1 seconds to go, and then the puck has a scene. I don't know. All night, Chris's new team there, the West Kelowna. You're going to have to watch the Okanagan Rockets, but Tice Wood found a way to jam the puck by Brendan Gee in overtime, and the Okanagan Rockets are advancing to the U17 BC EHL finals. Good luck to them, but it was a great season for the Canadians. Congratulations, but their whole season, all their seasons end at the same time, which was sort of unfortunate there. And I'm wearing a Seattle Kraken shirt today with the Vancouver Canucks. A tough weekend. One of my favorite reporters in non-hockey is John Clayton, and he passed away on Friday. Suddenly, icon in Seattle, and was a guy, if you were an NFL follower, a must listen to. Passed away suddenly. So that was pretty much heartbreaking, and I wanted to pay tribute to that. And I also wanted to give a shout out because I know Tyler would want to do this as well. Jamie Campbell is going into the season for the Blue Jays, diagnosed with a form of cancer. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank of what exactly it was. I'll look it up here in a moment. But he's so. Just before we go, I mean, there's some real life things that happen now. What we can too. So as we get into the fun stuff of hockey, I wanted to kind of touch on those things as well.
Jamie Campbell is fighting leukemia.
Yeah, I wanted to say that, but I wasn't sure.
For someone who doesn't watch baseball coverage all that much, he's the redhead on the Blue Jays coverage, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's the host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe he also called Alex Goldo's gold medal run in moguls in 2010.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, as well. So, well, let's get into the chit chat today. The big thing that actually it started yesterday. Well, maybe did it really kind of start on Thursday in the sense that the Canucks lost to the Detroit Red Wings 1-0. That's the game that everybody is pointing to that says that was the death knell of this homestand. But then they lose to the Flames 5-2. Then yesterday, Travis Hamonic is traded to the Ottawa Senators. The 31-year-old in all of his $3 million salary is traded for a third-round pick. And then Travis Dermott is acquired from the Toronto Maple Leafs for a draft pick. And most of yesterday was pretty happy in Canucks land. Then last night, the Canucks lose to the Buffalo Sabres 3-2 in overtime. We'll touch on the home record at some point, and I think in this conversation as well. But this morning, Tyler Motte. Well, first let's make sure that this is correct. Brad Richardson acquired on waivers from the Calgary Flames, and then Tyler Motte was traded to the New York Rangers for a 4th-round draft pick. And well, not a happy Canuck Twitter on Sunday, not as happy Canuck Twitter on Monday. Maybe we'll start with Chris. How are you feeling after all of the moves?
Well, I think Sean and I are probably going to be fairly close to how we feel about how this weekend went, because it kind of went pretty close to what we were expecting. We weren't expecting like the earth-shattering major roster moves that some of the fans were hoping for, but we also were hoping for some, and I'm going to use an overused phrase that's been used in the past 2 days, some tidy pieces of business, and clearing out some cap space and making the lineup a little bit more efficient. Like, I'm happy that we were able to get all of Hamonic's cap hit off the books, and I have no idea why Dorian thought he was worth a third, but I can also at the same time understand why some fans might initially feel frustrated that we got more for Hamonic than we did for Mott.
Sean?
There is a market out there for defensemen, regardless of age and contract and whatever. And the Canucks were able to capitalize on that and get rid of a anchor of a contract that was Travis Hamonic. And he just never was able to just work in Vancouver. Came in late, didn't have any part of that shortened camp at the beginning of last season, and then the whole debacle with the vaccination status of Travis Hamonic and what he wanted to do at the beginning of this season. And I don't think that the team ever got over that. And then I don't think the team ever got over that, because I think they just felt that he wasn't there to start the season, and it just never felt right, and never felt right with the fan base either. But he's got a new start in Ottawa, and I can understand why Ottawa would want to bring in someone like that, with Jake Sanderson coming into the fold probably at the end of this season. If not, he will be there to start the next season. The price I don't understand, but good on Patrick Allvin. And can I just go on a bit of a rant here? Patrick Allvin is the GM of the Canucks, not Jim Rutherford. He's the one who's driving this. Alvin's the one driving this. It's not, yeah, Rutherford sort of has like the final say, but he's going to give the leash, a decent amount of leash to Patrick Allvin, especially right now.
I believe he gave him most of the leash. Sorry to interrupt, but I believe his words were, I believe that he basically said that Patrick Allvin was in charge of this trade deadline.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that let's compare this to all the narrative coming out of Montreal. Do we hear Jeff Gorton's name at all?
Nope.
It's all about Kent Hughes.
But then again, we also are only hearing like what makes it out of Montreal. Whereas I wonder if there's a certain level of fandom in Vancouver that is overly obsessed with Rutherford as compared to maybe the rest of the league.
Mm-hmm. But moving on, then you also look at what the prices were for fourth line players. And as much as we love Tyler Motte and think he's not your average fourth liner, look at what Seattle got for Mason Appleton, right? I think they're very comparable players. So I look at that, and that's what the price was. And it takes two team. You need at least two teams, two GMs to make a trade. And if the other GM's not willing to give up more than a fourth for Tyler Motte, then guess what? That's what you're going to trade him for. And I think it's fine. It's fair. Like I thought, I was wrong. I thought they'd get a second for him, but I was wrong. The market wasn't there. The market was on defensemen, not on good penalty killing bottom six players, especially a winger.
Yeah, the trade deadline typically is a good market for defensemen. I mean, this was especially high though overall. I think the prices were pretty much for most of them. I from a Flames perspective, I don't think that there was a price I was willing with any of the trades that happened for the potential Flames defensemen. Just to put this into perspective, I don't think the Flames should have paid. Not one of them. I was like, no. I thought everyone except the Leafs probably overpaid, and Gio to Calgary was not going to happen anyway. If you can read what Pierre LeBrun wrote about that, why that couldn't have happened anyway, but everything else I thought was a bit of an overpay. But
Welcome to trade deadline season, Kev. This is when everyone overpays.
Mostly everyone overpays. I think there are some teams that don't always overpay, and I think this was different because I feel like a lot of teams are really making sure that they're all in this year, and there's pressure on some teams this year to do something in the playoffs than not. But I'm looking here. Zach Sanford got a 5th round pick from for Winnipeg to Ottawa. I'm not saying they're comparable, but like you look at some of these, Andrew Cogliano got a 5th round pick from the Sharks got a 5th round pick for him. Looking here at some of the other forwards, Marcus Johansson, a 4th and a 6th. You got Mason Appleton went for a 4th. So yeah, I mean, those kind of bottom 6 players were not going in for anything higher than a 3rd round pick today. So that's, I think, just a reality of the situation. And again, if you weren't going to sign him, I think the one thing that I don't think people get, or I don't think I truly get, is you're trying to juggle the fact that you're trying to negotiate with Tyler Motte and in his camp while you're trying to make moves, while you're trying to decide what to trade for him. So I don't think that there is I think with all of that putting in there, I think you got something for Tyler Motte. And I think overall I think that's a good thing. And, I think the Canucks will miss Tyler Motte, but I think the Rangers will be valued for him. And Travis Dermott, you got younger, you got cheaper for sure. You saved 1.5. You got faster, probably. You've got more versatile. So I think overall, from the Canucks perspective, and then let's not forget the acquisition of Brad Richardson, and also a couple of other things that happened. I think, it wasn't the major moves, but you're right, Chris, and it just is why you should listen to the Shifts and Pucks podcast, because we said since January, all of us said there will not be a major move at the trade deadline. And what happened? Was there a major move at the trade deadline?
There wasn't.
We're right. So that's, and I don't think that, really, the Canucks should not have made a major move at the trade deadline. I don't think that this was the right time to do it. All of these moves are off-season moves. You can make the decisions on. I mean, Allvin said that they had time to decide on Brock Boeser. Take that time. All of that, I think there's nothing in terms of what the trade value here is at this point. I think they did the right thing. I think the reason, Sean, we want trade deadline at prime time is we want to see action. We want to see big moves. We want to see some of the major shakers. We're not interested in Nathan Beaulieu for 2022 7th round pick. That does not interest us in any way. We want JT Miller for first round pick. We want blockbusters. We want every trade to be a blockbuster. And then if it's not enough on that blockbuster, we want to criticize for that. So I think overall, sometimes it's better to be a bit conservative and not necessarily make a move that's out of turn and possibly not enough at this particular point in time and wait for the offseason.
And just to point out how much of a snooze fest that Beaulieu trade was, the condition on that 7th round pick was that he has to appear in half of the playoff games, which we all know is not going to happen. So in all realisticness, they got him for free.
Yeah, you would still have it in prime time. You'd still have all the talk, and it just there would be more people would be able to watch. Is more what I'm after there. But in terms of the Canucks, yeah, I didn't expect them to make a big deal unless someone actually knocked their socks off with an offer. That wasn't going to happen. Miller wasn't going to be traded. Garland wasn't going to be traded. There was talk about LA wanting Garland, but they weren't going to give up a first round pick, and they didn't want to give up a top prospect. They wanted the Ferrari.
Tyler Motte back.
That would have been funny.
They wanted a Ferrari, but they only wanted to pay the price for a Volkswagen Golf. It was just come on.
I mean, if there was going to be a quote unquote core piece that could have been dealt today, it likely would have been Garland. But like we've said before, this management group has set a price and are not willing to budge on it. And nobody met that price. So we're waiting until the offseason.
And with that there, Chris, and you look at this, that will be the biggest stamp on this organization that Patrick Allvin and his management group will put on this team, will be that first big move. And you cannot rush that. You cannot just do it because it's the deadline. You have, as you said, you set a price and you wait for them to come to it. With Garland and Miller, you definitely have a lot of time for that to happen if you want to move either of them. With Brock Boeser, there is a bit more of a time crunch, especially going into the offseason. But there was no absolute rush to make that move now. So, and who knows? Maybe there was talk that there was some interest in Tyler Myers, and we don't know what that actually looks like. But if they're able to move that contract out, say, and free up that cap space, they may not have to move any of those players. So have some patience. Be willing to take this into the offseason and go from there, because the first major move of this management group will be forever on that resume for them. And they can't get it wrong.
And if they can do it with the same cutthroat efficiency that they did with Allvin's first move period, with the whole essentially three-way trade of getting rid of Hamonic and picking up Dermott, then he will be forever loved by this fan base until there's some, I guess, sideways deal that doesn't go the way that he expected. But what I really like about it so far, what he's shown, is that he's not going to show that same desperation that Benning would when it came to crunch times like the trade deadline or free agent signing frenzy day.
Yeah. I think, there's nothing there I disagree with. I mean, the two other questions in terms of moves, Luke Schenn, I was kind of surprised he didn't get moved. I would have thought he would be a guy. I would have thought, and maybe just this would have been more entertaining as well. Would it not have been great to have Luke Schenn, the AHL defenseman, on the Devon's Leafs just for our own entertainment? Just for our own entertainment. It would have been fun.
No,
he's living forever. He is an AHL defenseman right now. Look, Devon, he's on your blue line.
No, I want Luke Schenn on the Canucks. I don't want him on the Leafs.
It would have been entertaining, yes, Kev, but Allvin's comments in the presser was very telling in the sense that he wants to keep him here for like culture carrying and like having that cut pedigree and what it takes. And like, yes, he's a fringe-ish NHLer at this point in his career, but considering that he's the most recent cup winner on our roster, I feel that definitely carries some weight.
Let me, on the serious side, I was trying to have some fun because I don't always have fun, so I'm trying to have a little bit of fun. But on the serious side, I honestly just let me just speak a little bit about Luke Schenn here. I think that he has become, he is the hot. He is. I don't want to say no. He's becoming one of the heartbeat guys of the Canucks. He reminds me of a lot of ways. It's a very similar situation to Eric Goodbranson in Calgary, not in a sense of how they're contributing to the team. I felt honestly from Saturday, the only guy that showed even a tinge of emotion to me was Luke Schenn. He's one of those guys and that is willing to stand up for your teammate no matter what. There was it was Highmore. I don't think it was Calgary. I think it was earlier this week. Someone whacked Highmore into the boards. Schenn went in and had a conversation about it. I just don't think that you can take that. I don't think that stuff should. I agree with all of you. I don't think that you should get rid of Luke Schenn in any way, shape, or form. And to me, honestly, I think that Luke Schenn should be at least in the consideration for the Canucks nominee for Masterton. I really do. I think that there's, we keep talking about this guy as a fringe NHLer. He's done more than enough this year in a very difficult situation to be a great teammate, and I think he deserves more respect than that.
And Dylan has a better option for entertainment. Kulak to the Leafs would have been better for Devon content.
I mean, he would be an improvement on Mrazek.
Mrazek cleared waivers. Well, yeah, and that was the other guy. It was Yaroslav Halak. I guess people were expecting. I don't know if Allvin. He didn't talk about it. I don't think during the press conference at all. I don't recall hearing it.
I think he gave a no comment on it, and I think all the talk and about Halak was more like a fool's hope than anything else. I think it would have been a small miracle if Allvin and that was able to pull off a move to move out Kulak and that bonus. But honestly, it is what it is. And this team is, we've talked about it, they're flawed. They've got some good pieces, but the overall roster construction is not there. I think we got to I really feel, look, you're talking to a guy who after the Buffalo game said that you do not, like, if you're jumping off the ship after one fucking game, That's not the way this is. That's not the way this works. And I said it again today. I disagree with you saying that it was Buffalo. That Buffalo was the last straw there. It was the whole homestand.
No, I said some people.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily say it was.
Yeah.
I think overall the home record this year is unacceptable.
Let's just put it this way. If they had lost to Buffalo and then won versus Calgary and had they won the back-to-back, when they lost to
Detroit,
when they lost to Detroit, and that was the game that everyone sort of looked at and said that, well, you have to sell now. Had they won the games against Calgary and Buffalo, that the conversation would have been different, and there still would have been hope.
Because at least it would have been a 500-ish homestand as opposed to a 2-3-2 homestand.
Yeah. So you look at, and when I look at that, and I'm like, it's the whole homestand combined that made them, and they didn't even really sell. They made the decision they couldn't come to terms with Tyler Motte, so they moved him. They moved on from Travis Hamonic, which was, I think, a very, very good move, and brought in a younger, faster defenseman who can play both sides in Travis Dermott. That's not selling. The Canucks did not really, quote unquote, sell, but they didn't really have any of those stereotypical selling assets. Like you look at Anaheim, everyone's going to be like, well, look at what Anaheim did. Well, they had Lindholm, Raquel, and Manson all needed new contracts, and they all could. They worked on it, and they couldn't find a way. They couldn't find a contract that worked for both sides, so they moved on from them and got a bunch of assets for them. If the Canucks were in that same spot, I would have expected the same thing.
But they only had one namesake, a UFA, and that was Tyler Motte. And yeah, they dealt him. And the Hamonic one was more just a convenient plus as far as opening up some much-needed cap space.
Yeah. I think, like, what's the difference between what Vancouver and Winnipeg did, really? I mean, Winnipeg acquired Mason Appleton and Zach Sanford. They traded Andrew Kopp because they probably couldn't get a deal for him. And it is comparable because both of them are 4 points out of a playoff spot. And last I checked, the Wild were beating the Vegas Golden Knights. So really, did Winnipeg sell today? Not really. I wouldn't even say that they bought. I think they
roster tweaking is neither buying nor selling.
Yeah, that's what they both did. So yeah, I don't know. But again, it was nothing. This trade deadline, there was nothing I expected. Nothing. But again, I feel like sometimes I think that this fan base gets a little dramatic. Sometimes I hate to say it.
You don't say. Well, Vancouver, never.
And what a great example was the whole Kulak situation, because I looked at the bench on Saturday night, and I looked like a guy that was having a conversation with his trainer and then said, get ready to go in. Okay, sounds good. I'll be in for the third period. All of a sudden, well, I don't think Kulak was really ready to play in the third period, guys. I don't know. What do you think happened there?
I mean, that was led by Hockey Night in Canada, but...
Fair.
And just before we move on to that, I don't, Dylan, we're talking more just like the idea team strategy of the deadline as opposed to what
value of individual players.
The value of the players. Kopp is definitely a more valuable player than Tyler Motte. He's a legit third liner. Well, Tyler Motte never got to that point, even though I think
he was pushing towards it though.
Yeah, I think his play in the last little bit was of third line caliber, but he doesn't have that the resume that Andrew Kopp does. So they were able to sell a little higher on Andrew Kopp, but getting Mason Appleton back, who I think is a comparable player to a Tyler Motte for Winnipeg, is good, especially if they're able to re-sign him, which I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Yeah, I think it's raw. Yeah, I think it was more just tweaking, and I think more than just the Mott move was just the move of getting a third round pick back for Hamonic, and then bringing in a younger, faster, more versatile player who fits the mold of what Allvin and this management group want to have on this roster is something I think should be talked about more than the failings or whatever you want to, or just the missed opportunities that happened during this deadline for the Canucks. I don't think, other than being like, had the only other move that the Canucks did after these three was to move on from Kulak and get rid of that bonus, I think everyone would be considering this an absolute like windfall, like win for the Canucks in this deadline. Like that's the only other option, like thing that could, like, other than like somehow getting a king's ransom for any of the big names. But I think it's just, you look at that, and I said it from a long time ago, and we said it. All of us said this on this podcast. There was never going to be a big trade because I don't think anyone was willing to meet the Canucks like price for this season. I bet you there will be multiple teams that are willing to meet that in the offseason because there's more cap flexibility to do it. But
because let's be honest, in this era, if you're a cup contender, you are cap strapped.
Yep.
And if you're trying to improve your roster at the deadline, you are doing cap shenanigans to try and exploit as much as you can. Look at Tampa, look at Toronto, look at Colorado, like Vegas, even though they're now kind of on the fringe.
Kessler.
That's gonna be interesting to watch. I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but that trade, that Dadnoff and Kessler trade, is now they're not sure whether or not it can go through because of a no trade issue that Dadnoff has that no one knew about apparently.
Yeah, so apparently, according to Darren Drager, and I think someone else pointed this out as well, Dadnoff submitted a 10 trade no trade list to Ottawa. Anaheim was on it. Ottawa did not let Vegas know, and the NHL did not know. So that is where the confusion is lying here, where Dadnoff going to Anaheim. But my understanding why the NHL has allowed the trade to go through. But I think it's something we'll have to probably keep an eye on.
So basically, it's Dorian's fault, but Dadnoff's okay with it now. Am I understanding that correctly?
Dadnoff was still with the Golden Knights as of an hour before the game, so he has made no step towards Anaheim as far as I know. So I don't know what the latest is. I'm going to assume that this trade will. I'm living with the fact that this trade has happened, It's Dadnoff's decision if he wants to go to Anaheim or not. That's his call.
But it sounds like it was Dorian who basically forgot to inform the team who picked up the player as well as the league. Would that be a fair assumption?
No, it's not that simple.
It's not. No.
As per Elliot Friedman, the issue with Dadnoff, according to multiple sources, his contract indicates he cannot be traded without first being allowed to submit a 10-team no-trade list. And it also says a list for this year must be submitted by July 1st, 2021. So when was that when did that Dadnoff trade happen?
It was the summer of 21. It was in July of 2021. It was traded.
I think there's some legal gray area that's the issue here.
And because the NHL is ran by lawyers, they love gray areas and just decided to allow it to go through because they have no reason to rubber stamp it. No.
Yeah, July 28, 2021. And the other thing is Anaheim was on that 10-team no-trade list that was submitted July 1st.
Okay, and I guess one of the gray areas was unrestricted free agency was the end of July. It was not July 1st.
Well, that and there's always there's always a thing about whether or not the new team will take the no trade clause on when they acquire them, because JT Miller had a modified no trade clause when he signed his deal with the Lightning, but the Canucks, once they traded the Canucks, it was void. So it's just a bit of it's a bit of a clusterfuck.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. I think right now it sounds like the trade is in limbo, but I'm going to assume that trade is going to go through. That would be my assumption, that trade will go through. But anyway, where were we before all of?
I was just at deadline. You have teams that are able to find a way to make it work because of cap shenanigans.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. That's how we got to Dadnoff and Kessler. Yeah. And you're right, Chris. Right. So teams like there's the cap creativity, and for the Canucks, I think in the offseason we'll have more cap flexibility going on there, and then I think we'll see those major moves that everybody is expecting in the offseason. And that's when Patrick Allvin and crew will put their stamp on what this team is next year.
Exactly. And that's you look at leading up to the draft, they will be able to they will be making major moves. This offseason will be a very busy season for Patrick Allvin and this management team, and for the Canucks. What this team looks like now will be very different from what it looks like come October. So if you're upset with how this deadline went, don't worry, you're going to get the changes you want. The Canucks are going to retool. They are going to accumulate more assets this offseason.
Yeah. I think so in terms of the trade part, I think, that's where we're at now. But with this team, the current incarnation of this Canucks team, I think that there is a couple of things I do think. One I think has been discussed a little bit more than the other, but the slow starts. And this isn't, Calgary, Buffalo, Detroit. This wasn't the first 3 games that they had slowed. This wasn't like just a recent phenomenon. This has been a problem even before Bruce Boudreau came here. The team has had struggle with slow starts, and specifically, I'm noting home game slow starts. They're having trouble getting off the grid, off the snide, get the motor running at the beginning of the game. And Bruce Boudreau was asked about this earlier this week. He said, we think we'll need a psychologist. Maybe they do need a psychologist. Maybe, quite frankly, what they need to do is someone needs to just, I don't necessarily want to endorse this fully. And partially, maybe someone needs to drop the gloves and start a fight right off the bat and get some sort of emotion in that locker room going, because it is been a long-standing theme with this Canucks team this year.
I look at it and I wonder just how much of this all everything that's gone on for the past like year and a half is weighed in on everything. When they get going, they're fine. It's just like they do struggle to get going. And I think part of how I'm going to look at the rest of this season is what development are we seeing from the players and the team in regards to that, and then just all around play as well. So I don't know what the answer is, but they need to fix it, because if they're going to take that next step and start to build on what has been a very good run under Bruce Boudreau since he took over, and maybe take that next step the way the Flames did this year under Daryl Sutter after he took over halfway through last year, they need to fix that. And maybe it is just they need a complete and utter reset mentally over the off season, have a proper, like, close to normal off season, and go from there, as well as having a few moves and few voices and new faces in the locker room and on the ice. I don't know. I look at that and I go, yeah, it's been an issue. But they need to find a way to fix it, and it may not happen this season, but going to next season, this cannot be repeated.
My serious answer to that is basically I echo Sean, but my joking answer that I was wanting to say is, are they still doing the pregame soccer matches in the hallway? Because if they're not, maybe they should bring that back.
I think that's just something that I think most teams do that, though. So
I know, but they used to like document that on Twitter and like the YouTube videos and whatnot all the time. Whereas I don't think I've seen that at all this season. So who knows?
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't. The access to the team is much different in our current time, but I'm assuming that most teams do the soccer ball, even the U15s do the soccer ball thing. So I'm going to assume that the Canucks still do the soccer ball thing, but it is a fair question, I think. Maybe they need to go to Costco and have a hot dog before. Just everyone line up, grab a hot dog. It's across the street. It's a great.
That ain't healthy.
I'm just joking.
I mean, if we pick up Phil Kessel, he might do that.
Yeah.
He had his favorite hot dog stand in Toronto, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna create a bunch of Vladimir Krutovs again.
But you know what? That leads to, I think, the next part of this, and the one thing that has not been talked about overall is the home record, and it is technically under 500. Like it's let me pull it up from the old standings here. Because
can we stop with that though? That's not how the standings work, though. That's not how the points percentage works.
Okay, but still, no matter how you look at it, and I'll just bring up some comparison. It's 14, 13, and 5. And there's some home records and some playoff teams that are not great, but let's look at Dallas, 28 and 1, St. Louis, 27 and 4. Colorado, I think 24, 3 and 3, but you want to establish some sort of home dominance that when a team comes down to the West Coast and plays in Vancouver, they should be afraid. Right now, I tell you, from watching that Flames Canucks game, Rasmus Andersson had a field day. He could have went to Granville Island, grabbed a sushi, went to North Vancouver, picked up some fruit, and he wasn't touched. He had all day to do whatever he wanted to do. Like my concern ultimately here with this is I've said this before. I just think it's way too easy to play the Canucks right now.
Again, my joking answer is I guess I need to attend more games at Rogers Arena because the only one I've been at this season, we won 7-1.
And they wore the flying skate jersey. This one. This one. Sorry.
Get it right, Kevin.
I'm mirror, yes.
I'm trying to pull up what the home record would be with Bruce Boudreau under it, because I think what's the Leafs home record right now?
And just for the fun of it, I'll add Edmonton's, because Edmonton is 19 and 12, but they've just had one. They swept that road trip, so it wasn't good before that. The Leafs are 22-7-2.
Okay. Let's see here. Am I able to break this down? Yes. All right, because under Bruce Boudreau, the Canucks, they're essentially the same. They're 7-6-4. But I do think that, like, with the way this market is, and the reason that's why I asked about Toronto. And nothing about it, nothing against Edmonton or any other the markets in Canada other than Toronto and Montreal, they don't hold a candle to like all those three are a step above in terms of heat and volume of the fan base and the media, and with everything that went on, I think it just was a bit of a confidence issue. And if they get off to a strong start next season and they're able to start winning at home, I think the ball will start rolling, and they'll figure it out. I think a lot of his confidence and just and yeah, it's just I would just say confidence is one of the biggest ones, and I think that's why Boudreau has been such a good hire, is that he's starting to build that slowly.
Chris, did you have anything to?
As far as the home record is concerned, I don't really like. I'm not, other than just allowing Bruce to have like a full camp and kind of get it going from how he wants to run the team from the start of the season, including train cap and everything. I'm not putting much stock into it this season. Like, yes, our road record has been better than our home record, but ultimately when it comes down to it, it kind of comes out in the wash for me as far as this season is concerned.
Fair enough. But it is something I think, yeah, that has to be one thing that has to be rectified for sure next year. The other thing that I think that Allvin said that I do think is a good thing, and we wanted to point out is the status of Vasily Podkolzin. It looks like when the Canucks season is over and the Abbotsford Canucks are ready to go to the playoffs, Podkolzin will be able to join them. And according to Chris Faber, it's expected he should be taking on a leadership role. And I think that that's a good thing, because that's a very similar thing to what happened with Andre Mondre. It's allowing, my point on this is allowing a player to develop confidence, and Podkolzin needs to continue to develop confidence. Höglander needs to develop confidence. That is one of you just mentioned it. I think those are two players that, they're still young. So you want these players to develop confidence, and that getting Podkolzin on a playoff run in Abbotsford is going to give him confidence. I think that's a great move by Patrick Allvin and the staff.
Yep. And probably a move that they should have done with Höglander last season. But obviously, the Benning regime wasn't that forward thinking.
I think last season was also a bit of a just an outlier because of how
COVID,
the whole season went, and with just everything with last season. I think you just have to take with a grain of salt and understand that it was completely different. And also the Canucks farm team was in Utica. And what was the border situation back then? I don't.
There was
very true. Yeah.
It was difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. So
COVID kind of screwed that up. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't think. Yeah. I think there was a possible way to do it last year. I think they actually did paper him down, but it just never. It never materialized as a possible way to do it without him having to go back into quarantine again.
For 2 weeks, and depending on how long the playoff run was, yeah.
But that's the thing. It's just continuing to develop and giving players confidence. I think that's good. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, and then I think the other thing, one other thing we never got into last week is the signing an overage player. The Canucks did sign an overage player named Arshdeep Bains from the Red Deer Rebels. He is one of the top scorers in the WHL. And just for those that don't follow the WHL very closely or are looking at the rankings and saying, well, it's the Edmonton Oil Kings or the Winnipeg Ice, the Red Deer Rebels are going to be a problem for those teams when it comes to playoffs, because the Red Deer Rebels play coached and managed sort of by, not coached by Brett Sutter. It's someone else coaching this year, but they have a Sutter style, and they will cause problems for teams. And so, and Bains and Ben King are the top two scorers right now in the WHL. Bains has 94 points, Ben King 93 points. And these are another ways, and we'll touch on this in a little bit here too, but there is so much appeal about making sure that you get a first round draft pick. I mean, we looked at the Brandon Hagel deal and went, oh my gosh, the Lightning gave up a first round draft pick. What? How for Brandon Hagel? But there's other ways. But there's other ways to get players, and this is another example of that. Arshdeep Bains, an overage player, like Tanner Jeannot, Michael Bunting, two good examples this year of finding players in other ways other than relying on that good old first round draft pick, and just finding outside the box ways. And it's a good signing, and I think, and Bains is from Surrey, so we'll probably see him first in Abbotsford, and who knows, could be found money.
For those who know the meme of Pittsburgh always finding a way to get the Mark Donks and the Buzz Flevettes, that's how you do it. It's signing overagers. It's signing NCAA free agents. That's how you do it. Jake Guentzel was an NCAA free agent, and it is a stud goal scorer for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it's not just because he plays with Crosby. And
this example might not be nearly as good as like a Guentzel, but wasn't Chris Tanev, and I realize that that's back to the Gillis regime, but wasn't Chris Tanev a NCAA signing?
Chris Tanev, Troy Stetcher.
Yep.
There are lots of it happens, and stone unturned. And one of my biggest issues with, we talked about we talked about it a little bit earlier about how myopic it is to just focus in on draft picks. You have to find players in other avenues. You have to make trades for players in their mid 20s and hope that you can and take a bit of a risk there and a bit of a gamble there to try and hope that they can take that next step that they couldn't in their old spots. Yeah, Alex fucking Burrows was a
ECHLer when he got discovered by the Canucks.
Exactly. So no stone unturned. This is a great. Anytime you can add someone that you aren't giving up any assets for is a good move. You never know how they're going to turn out. Zach Mcewen was another one. Yeah, they unfortunately they lost him on waivers, but he was a signing out of the QMJHL that people there was a couple people who railed on the Canucks for signing him. He turned out to be someone who could play at the NHL level. The major issue with the betting era was that they were never able to turn those fines into other assets. And losing the Jonah Gadjevits and the Zach McEwens this preseason hurt because they were never able to turn them into other assets that could continue to build depth within the organization. So adding I don't want to butcher his name.
Arshdeep Bains.
Arshdeep Bains. Thanks, Kev. Adding Arshdeep Bains is a good start. We're good. And watch for the Canucks in this offseason again in NCAA players, European free agents. Watch for them to sign those players, as well as watch for them to be targeting players like a Travis Dermott. I honestly really like that pickup. He's a left shot defenseman who can play at both sides. He's got good speed. He's an aggressive player too. Sometimes too aggressive, but there's always that saying you can never paint stripes on on a kitten, but you can it's easier to rein in like a stallion than to try and build something up from like to deal with like someone who doesn't have that aggression. It's easier to rein them in. So I think it's great, and it's not like he's like aggressive to the point where he's like in dangerous. He's aggressive. He can be too aggressive and he gets caught making the wrong decision here or there.
And I know that there's Leaf fans out there that'll bring up Game 6 of last year's playoffs.
You know, again, but that's stuff you learn from, right?
Yeah. And
you have to, and he's going to have that chance to do that on the Canucks. And sometimes those players need it. And Arshdeep Bains will be a good player for option down in Abbotsford next year.
And a good organization
too.
And it's a good organization. The Red Deer Rebels develop solid good thinking National Hockey League players. And I mean, I again show my WHL bias again, but whatever. I don't care. I'm too much about that. But that's, the Rebels are a good organization, and you find players like that. Like Mark Giordano, by the way, another example of a guy that was a walk-on. The other thing here is with the nice thing about a player like an Arshdeep Bains. I mean, it's unfortunate that he wasn't drafted, but that's a guy that has some motivation to prove everyone that didn't pick him wrong. That is, as opposed to a first round pick that is like, I'm awesome, man.
That Garland type chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, you want guys with some chips on your shoulders that are willing to compete for spots, and that's good. You want some competition in your locker room for spots, and that's what Arshdeep Bains brings. So, good signing for the Canucks there.
The other thing I think you have to look at is you want players who want to be part of the organization.
Yep.
Which is going back to Luke Schenn. He wants to be part of the Vancouver Canucks. He feels proud to be part of the Vancouver Canucks. You need that. I think again that again you go back to losing Tanev and Markstrom, but mostly Tanev. He bled blue and green his whole fucking career in the Canucks. So you have to have that. You've got that in Bo Horvat. You've got that with Quinn Hughes and Petey and Demko now. I hope they have that in JT Miller. But you need players, especially also the ones that are homegrown, because you build roots. You build a
center type, yeah.
You need that, and bringing in again. That's sometimes having those local players are huge, especially if you get them young and they grow up that way. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's, and then to Kevin's point. Undrafted player from the Red Deer Rebels who just got traded at this deadline for 2 first-round picks. Brandon Hagel.
Yep.
You look at
if we're talking about successful Red Deer Rebels, you can throw Nugent Hopkins into that pile too.
I'm more looking at the undrafted.
That's fair.
Well, I think Hagel was drafted, but Buffalo didn't sign him, and then Chicago did. So it's not necessarily that. Like you also look at Matt Dumba, Nugent Hopkins, Hayden Fleury's a decent NHLer at this point. Canucks had one for a while, and he was overpaid for it and Brandon Sutter, but he was still a very good NHLer. So I think it's a great sign. Like I said, no stone unturned. You have to find players. You have to find players in the draft. You have to find players out of the draft. You have to be willing to trade draft picks for players. It's not just go accumulate a bunch of draft picks and hope they're out and then maybe find a way. No, you have to make moves even before you accumulate the draft picks, that the draft pick capital that everyone seems to want.
Yeah. Maybe let's do the Pig and Duke here, because I think we can, because I want to transition us a little bit here, because I think this will transition us to other NHL, but kind of keep us in the theme here, because so let's do the Pig and Duke read now, and then I will pontificate after about what I'm sort of seeing here. Okay?
All right. So yeah, the Ships and Pucks podcast, we have partnered with the Pig and Duke pubs here in Calgary and part of their Pig and Puck Club. They have 2 locations that you can go to and join the Pig and Puck Club. The downtown location at 503 4th Ave Southwest, which I have gone and had drinks with Dylan at before. And then you also have the neighborhood pub location at 1312 12th Ave Southwest, which I go there all the time. Right, Chris?
Me too.
Members of the Pig and Puck Club can get game day specials when they go and watch Flames and Canucks games at either location. And members are also able to enter a draw for tickets to the April 23rd game at the Saddle Dome between the Flames and Canucks. At the Pig and Duke, you can get their house beers, the Pub Life beers, where they have got a lager and a copper beer that you can get. And us here, the Shifts and Pucks podcast, have 2 tickets to give away as part of the Pig and Puck Club. And you can enter them by retweeting any of our episodes or pod clips on Twitter, or DMing us the word of the week on Twitter or Facebook. This week's word of the week is deadline. We just went through a deadline. This week's word of the week is deadline. And we want to thank Joe and Steven and everyone at the Pig and Duke for supporting the podcast. And we want to, again, congratulate them for this past week, celebrating their 10th anniversary. The neighborhood pub, the 12th Ave location, has been around here in Calgary for 10 years. And it's been fantastic. And it is now a big part of the community here in Calgary. And we want to thank you, Joe and Steven and everyone there, for supporting the podcast.
I would have threw my hat on for that promo, but it's already packed away, sadly.
Fair enough. And just a reminder, we have our news recaps are usually Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, but we did the trade deadline recap this morning. Devin and I did that. So we'll be back Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And we might be doing a weekend news. Well, I'll have to decide now that my weekends are free. We'll have to see about that, but check those out. We do our daily pod clips. Portions of the podcast we send out on Saturdays, Sundays. I keep it about 10 minutes, which is an average car ride. You can listen to those as well. Subscribe, rate, and review, all of those things. Tell your friends about us, because the more people that know us, the better life will be for all of us. Right, there we go. And of course, check us out as well on the Area 51 Sports Network. So we talked a little bit about this. Of course, we looked at the trade deadline and we talked about draft picks. And the Arizona Coyotes now in the next 3 years have 32 draft picks. The Seattle Kraken in the next 3 seasons have 33 draft picks now. I think a lot of teams and a lot of fans get really excited about having an idea of having a draft pick. Like the Chicago Blackhawks grabbing picks. Arizona, it's an exciting thing to do. I think for a lot of teams, but I wonder how truly effective this actually is. I mean, yes, you want to throw more, you want to pick up more. The more players you pick up, the better chances that you're going to hit on somebody. And I understand that, but it still comes down to development, scouting, philosophy, where you're picking these players, as opposed to taking prospects, which, not a lot of prospects were traded in this year's trade deadline. I don't think that there was a really hot prospect traded. I can't, just looking at this list, I see mostly trade. I mean, other than like even the Flames with Toffoli and Yarncroc, we didn't see any prospects move there. There was one prospect that the Canadians got. It was Tyler Salamina, another couple of other prospects, but it was mostly draft picks. And I wonder if we overrate the draft pick a little bit. And especially wonder if we overrate the first round pick a little
I think what I'll say is I think Drew Helleson is probably the best pick, the best prospect that got traded in this trade deadline season.
Yeah. There was, okay, so the other two that were known were Juho Valalainen in the Hampus Lindholm trade, but I think a lot of people still have questions about where he's at. And the other one that is Oscar Sundqvist and Nick Leddy deal bid. I don't know if I would consider him a prospect or
No, he's not.
He's a lower level forward in the National Hockey League. That's where I would put him at this point.
Yeah, Sundqvist is not a prospect. He's played a significant amount of enough games in the NHL to not be considered that.
And he was traded for Ryan Reeves years ago. So we can't. Yeah.
I would almost argue that the lack of prospects being traded is more of a, not just this trade deadline, but is more of a general trend lately in the NHL. And I feel like that's a lot is related to just the fact that like how much league parity there is now and how cap strapped a lot of teams are. Like the emphasis on raising up your own home drafted players. I feel like the importance of that is so much higher now that teams are wanting to hold on to those prospects as opposed to potentially trading them away. So basically, unless it's like a fresh start, sort of this guy isn't really working out here sort of situation, I feel like most teams are wanting to hold on to those guys.
Also, Oscar Sundqvist is 27.
Yeah, not a prospect. Yeah. I was just, what my point is I'm just thinking of some of there wasn't a lot out there that I was like, this is a prospect.
I think
Drew Helleson was maybe, you're right. Drew Hellison's probably the biggest one.
I think the biggest part of that though is I think there's, with everything that's gone on over the past 2 years, there's not been a lot of I don't think there's a lot of teams are comfortable with their scouting with that.
No.
Whether that is acquiring a prospect or trading away one. You don't want to trade away one that turns into an absolute stud, and you don't want to acquire one who turns into a dud. I think there's a lot of there might be a little bit of that just worry and not sure about where these prospects are at this point. Plus, as you said, Chris, with the cap and how important having cost-controlled players are, you don't want to give those up if you think that if they've got a chance to make the NHL.
And like a perfect example of like the Canucks letting a prospect get away after drafting them, Jared McCann. Look how that worked out.
Yep. Yeah, that's part of it too. And yeah, it's just you have to find a way to. I think there's more willingness to give away picks because you can. It's easier to acquire picks than it is to acquire a top-notch prospect. And what usually the prospects that teams are giving up to are ones that they may not feel they don't feel comfortable with as in terms of that they think are going to make it. They're essentially, for a lack of a better term, giving up on them. So you can still make hay by doing that if you have good scouting, but I think with especially with the flat cap too, any sort of organizational depth that you're going to try and find, it's tough to do if you're just acquiring prospects, which is why I know people. The way I'll go on Twitter and I'll say, look, you got to stop. It's so myopic with how people are looking at. You have to acquire picks. You don't have to, but no matter what you do, you have to make sure that whatever trades you're making are adding depth and ammo for later trades to the team. And if whether it's a pick, a prospect, or whatever, you have to find a way to continue to recirculate depth into your organization. And that was one of the biggest failings of the Benning era in Vancouver, is that they weren't good at recycling recycling things and making sure that they continue to have a pipeline full of prospects coming through. And you don't always need picks to make that work. But if you're going to make a trade for a younger player or a prospect, you have to make sure that they're someone who can help you, if not now, in the future.
So the one team that everyone is focused on here is what the Tampa Bay Lightning do. So the Tampa Bay Lightning for the last few years have traded first-round picks for Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrose, and they did it again this year for Brandon Hagel. They have the 30th, according to Scott Wheeler and The Athletic, coming into this season in terms of prospect list from The Athletic. And again, these things are always subjective, but I think that this is interesting. They're ranked 30th out of 32 teams in terms of where their prospect list's at. Yet, they are in competition to win their third consecutive Stanley Cup. So this is a team. I guess it really comes down to what your philosophy is, right? They still have some pretty interesting prospects in their pool. They've got Jack Finley as a prospect in their pool. They have a couple of goalies in their pool, but they also have a guy who I think personally is the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. Again, subjective, is in Andrei Vasilevsky. They also find ways to get the type of players that they need to fill out their roster. Corey Perry signs as a free agent. Zach Bogosian signs as a free agent. They know in that market that they have a place that people want to come to. So the draft to the Tampa Bay Lightning is not as urgent as it is to a place like the Arizona Coyotes, who can't keep free agents, who have to fill now a 4,000-seat arena. Even Montreal to a lesser extent, because it's not easy for Montreal to find free agents. That's not a place that a lot of people have to go, and you end up having to overpay. So I think a lot of this also has to do with where teams are at philosophically. One of the things I liked that Brad Treliving said is, after the Yarncroc trade was I hate the term all in, because it doesn't make sense. You're not all in. You're not putting all your chips in. You're continuing to build. And Tampa Bay has been capped crunched for years. We thought they were done, and they keep finding ways to do it. It's like you said earlier, Sean and Chris, you guys, we talked about before. It's finding no stone unturned and being creative with your roster. It's not necessarily that you need to get draft picks. It's what you do with what you have. And Tampa Bay has mastered what they've done perfectly. You cannot argue with the success of the Tampa Bay Lightning because they have two cups to back up what they've done right.
How did they acquire Yanni Gourde?
That was let me look that up.
Free agent signing. Out of junior.
Yep.
Alex Barboulay.
Free agent signing. Yep.
There, again, no stone unturned. You can build up depth in your organization without picks.
The draft is a great way to sell a market on hope. It is not a guarantee. It's not the only way that you can succeed.
And it's a lottery. Like, it quite literally by definition is a lottery. So you don't it's a gamble on whether they actually turn out.
Yeah. A team we pick on often, the Edmonton Oilers. How many late after second round picks are on that roster? McDavid was a first pick. Draisaitl was a high pick. Not much else. Kyler Yamamoto, I believe, was a first round pick.
Hughes was a first round pick.
Yeah. It's how you develop and your philosophy around your organization that makes you successful. It's not if you have 33 or 32 picks. Now, it's great that you have them, but it's still how you use them. And and even the big.
Can I even just talk about Tampa Bay too, because they get so much praise for drafting Braden Point. Do you know who they drafted ahead of Braden Point in that draft? There's 3 players.
Let me.
Jonathan McLeod, Dominic Mason, and Tony DeAngelo.
I didn't realize
you heard of one of them.
Drafted by the Lightning.
Yeah, he was. I believe he was. He wasn't part of the JT Miller trade. I think it was a separate acquisition.
DeAngelo?
Yeah.
No, that wasn't part of it. Yeah, that was a completely different. And it's the same thing. Like, it just, you're gonna hit every once in a while. Adding more picks helps that, but there's also other ways to add. And look at Pittsburgh. Canucks have a Pittsburgh-driven front office with Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin. And again,
and don't forget Clancy.
And Clancy. Jake Guentzel. NCAA free agent. And you look at that, and I just like, you have to find no stone unturned. And you have to also make sure you make good trade. Yeah, make good trades for players who are maybe undervalued in other organizations. You look at Tampa now, and yeah, I think they've done a good job at doing that.
Well, yeah, hard to argue truly with the success of the Tampa Bay Lightning. It really is. I mean, you can if you want, but they have 2 Stanley Cups. But yeah, I guess to me, I mean, you even look at the Boston Bruins back a few years in the Dougie in that draft that they had 3 first-round picks in a row, and who they passed up on. And they still are, the Boston Bruins are still not out of the playoffs. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, that's a disaster. But the Boston Bruins are still hanging around because they also find other ways to get players. And that's an organization that a lot of players want to play on. They want to play on the Boston Bruins. And every organization is a bit different in that. And there's some organizations that players want to play with and some organizations that players don't. And that's the other battle and challenge that you have to deal with. So I think from the, just to bring this a little bit into the Canucks perspective before we jump into other NHL, I think it's nice to have draft picks, but I'm more interested in with the Canucks is the drafting, scouting, development philosophy of the Canucks. That's the question that I'm more interested in. You could have 75 picks. But I want to know what the philosophy is. What are you doing? Let's just say, let's say the Canucks get the first pick in 2022 and they do get a Shane Wright. What is the philosophy? What are they expecting from Shane Wright? I mean, everyone obviously says, well, franchise center, slam dunk. The Oilers put the C on Connor McDavid. Is that something that you think that the Canucks should do with Shane Wright if they pick him? And I'm just using this as an example. As an example of like, I know you're laughing a little bit, but I'm curious about the philosophy. Like, what are you going to do with your first round pick, your second pick, your third pick, whatever? Like, what is your philosophy?
Not laughing at you, Kev, or what you brought up, more so at Sean trying to restrain himself.
I just want to go back to Tampa and a favorite of this show, Eric Chernak. How did they acquire him? It was a trade. Tampa Bay had traded Ben Bishop and a 7th round pick for Peter Budaj, Eric Chernak, and a 7th round pick.
Yep.
If that trade was made by a Canucks GM, it would get lambasted because they didn't get a big enough return for that. Look at Eric Chernak now. He is a top 4 defenseman for that team and is a very big part of that team.
And let me add to what you're saying, because I think that there's a section of hockey people right now that are railing on the Eric Chernaks of the world, of these warriors, or these what we've called warriors, or these battlers, or sort of the lesser knowns, the ones that aren't as talented. You need them to win. You cannot win without those type of players. You just simply can't. You cannot be an all-skill team and win a Stanley Cup. It will never, ever, 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 ever happen. I promise you that.
No team has 6 offensive defensemen.
No.
And if they are, they're probably in the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
But they'll lose games 9-8, though.
Yeah. Like, it's, yeah, that, to me, you still need that type of, you need that type. I just, you need those late round picks. You need those, maybe it's just me, but I believe in that. You need the bottom groups. You need the lower lights. You need the lower level players to be successful. It's
a fully formed puzzle, not just one dimension.
Yeah.
I also want to say, I would love to see the Canucks find a way to load up on draft picks, at least for one of the next 2 drafts. Honestly,
sure.
2023, please.
Yeah, if there's a draft to do it, 2023, please and thank you.
But it's not the only way, and I just think there's too much of a myopic view on that right now. Honestly, I think it's just where I'm coming from. You don't necessarily find the Mark Donks and the Buzz Flabettes in the draft. You find them elsewhere.
Yep. Chris, when you get to Kelowna and buy a ticket at the Prospera Place and watch Andrew Crystal, because he is going to be a 2023 he should be a 2023 first round pick.
All right.
He is.
I'm down to watch the Rockets.
He is. I'm telling you. Let's watch out for this guy. And they also have a few overage players on that team. The Jake Lees, Tyson Feist, a couple of other one of those that should be in the NHL too. So, but watch for Andrew Crystal. He's a very exciting player.
And on that note of me moving to that area, are you guys going to come visit me for Young Stars?
If they have Young Stars.
Well, yes, COVID allowing, would you guys be down to make the trip?
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. I would love to.
I have other reasons to be out in that area too. There, Chris.
Oh yeah, you have a handful of them, Sean.
For those who I'll just my dad lives out there as well. He lives in the south. He actually lives down in Okanagan Falls, which is which is actually closer to Penticton
than I will be.
Than Chris will be if they continue to have it in Penticton, which they should.
But you'll have to fly to the airport that's by me, and then I will drive you down there.
I mean, we can get to Penticton.
We'll see. We'll have a future conference. By the way, this week Prospects game is on Wednesday. Check that out as well. By the way, so in terms of just wanted to get your guys' perspective on what happened with the rest of the NHL trade deadline today. We usually do winners and losers. I'd like to do it a little bit differently though, because there were buyers and sellers here. So from the buyers, who did well? Who are you like, oh, this was good?
Well, Minnesota.
I was going to say it's hard to say that like Florida didn't disappoint. They got Giroux and they got Sherratt. Like of all the teams that were like going all in. Well, sorry, Kev, all in. I feel like Florida did a pretty good job of that.
My problem with Florida is I think they gave up way too much for Ben Sherratt. I mean, Giroux was one of the best players out there. He wanted to go there, and I don't think they gave up too much to get him. So it battles out.
They got a good deal on one side, and they overpaid on the other, 50-50.
Yeah, I don't know if Sean's argument is purely Marc-Andre Fleury, but I do think the acquisitions of Deslauriers and Tyson Jost are good playoff acquisitions. That to me more impresses me than the Fleury pickup, because I think that that's an interesting goaltending situation now in Minnesota. You've got a combined age of 71 years old and a total of $7.2 million in goaltending right now in Minnesota.
Who was behind Talbot prior to the move?
His name was Kaskinen, and he was traded to San Jose. Kakinen, sorry, I keep butchering his name. Tribute to Devin. Hello, Devin.
But it's not only that. They were able to get a second-round pick for Jack McBain, who's right up there with Drew Hellison in terms of top, like a good prospect. He wasn't going to sign in Minnesota. They got Delorier, they got Jost. Underrated pickup is
Jacob Middleton too.
Middleton. So adding a Marc-Andre Fleury in there, and if they're smart, they won't throw him in there right away. They've got Cam Talbot who can give a little bit of a runway for Fleury to learn the system, learn the learn the defense a little bit. So
can be a 1B in the interim.
In 1B in the interim, moving to the starter come playoffs. I think it's when you look at what Minnesota did. I don't watch out for them like that. They're going to be a very tough out.
I got to say this. For those in Colorado and Calgary that are presuming that Western Conference final and are arguing who is better, I think you need to stop that right now, because one of you two are not going there. I'm telling you, I do not believe it will be a Colorado-Calgary Western Conference final. I think one of them will be upset.
You know what? As much as I think that's a bold take, Kev, I'm right there with you.
Yep, I do not think it will be a Colorado-Calgary Western Conference final.
And maybe it's just my Canuck bias, but I'm rooting more for the Avs than the Flames in that regard.
That's totally fine. I totally get it. But the Avs will not have an easy first-round matchup either. As much as Daryl Sutter thinks that it's going to be over in 8 days, it will probably.
I desperately don't want the Avs to be this decade's version of the San Jose Sharks. So I'm hoping that the moves that they made are going to help them get over that hump, that second round hump. So that way they don't end up becoming the Western version of the Maple Leafs.
No, it's not going to be an easy matchup for either division winner.
Nope, it's not. It's not. And just, because Nashville is going to be a hell of a problem.
Right now, it's Colorado. If we're going off points percentage, it's it'd be Colorado versus Vegas in the first round, and Calgary versus Nashville. Yeah.
And it depends on how hot Vegas is at the time. That could be a toss-up.
Actually, no, sorry. It's Colorado versus Dallas. If we're going by points percentage.
I like that better for Colorado, that matchup. And I'm not saying Dallas is going to roll over either, but I just, based off of the matchup, I like that better.
I know they only made one move, but I think it's a very good move. Carolina got better.
With Domi. See, that's funny because Liz on Area 51 put them as the losers because they have Max Domi and Tony DeAngelo on the same team. I think it's a good
look. If you're gonna look at just off ice stuff, for sure. But like on ice, that's tough, man.
They must feel that they have something in place that keeps everyone in line. And I'm assuming it's Rod.
That's called Rod the Bod Brindamore.
He
will flex, and everyone will cower.
Yeah. Rod Brindamore is very similar to what Devin calls Daryl Sutter. He's the captain of the team. He's that leader, and I think he's got everything there. I don't think Carolina needed to do a hell of a lot. My pick is Pittsburgh. I think the acquisition of Rickard Rakell, although was quite a bit, it was a bit of a steepish price. He can play all three lines. Dylan, I know you're there, but I think that Rickard Rakell, you can play him with Crosby, you can play him with Malkin. adds depth. I really like that pickup for Pittsburgh. I really do.
And he's not remotely like Calle Yarncroc. I'm sorry, Kev, but you're absolutely dead wrong on that.
No, I just that's fine. You could be wrong.
Calle Yarncroc is a very good third line player who is more of a defense first player. While Raquel is a more offense first player who is who can snipe. So that's not remotely the same, in my opinion.
Can I make a comparison? Would this be a Dallas Stars era Dickinson that you're saying he's similar to for Yarncroc?
No.
Like, obviously it didn't work out in Vancouver, but obviously Vancouver saw something in Dickinson in Dallas, and I was thinking that description sounded very similar to how Dickinson was sold to Canucks fans.
Yeah. I think he's a better skater than Dick. I think Yarncroc's a better skater than Dickinson. But
yeah, I'm talking about Dickinson in the right situation where he's thriving.
Yeah.
Oh, he's hurt though too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I also look at that you got Dominic Simone and Zach Aston Reese. Simone is an also ran nothing. Cale Klang is a goalie prospect who was drafted in the 3rd round. So, and Zach Aston Reese in a 2nd.
That was a price. I mean, but I liked that pickup for Pittsburgh.
Not to mention that they got some cap retained on that too. So I think it's a very fair price for what they're getting. So
who didn't do enough? Man, there's always a team. It's so easy. There's low-hanging fruit here already, but before we get to why low-hanging fruit, let's see if there's anyone else.
The Preds.
I'm not sure if my low-hanging fruit is going to be the same one that you're going for, though.
I don't think the Preds did enough.
Fair.
See, I don't know if the Preds needed to do a lot.
I feel like they're already overperforming what people expected from them anyway. So
they are, but they're right in there. Like they are right in there to have home ice advantage in that first round against either Minnesota or St. Louis. And I think they've got some players in there. I don't think as much as I like Roman Josi and Matthias Ekholm, the depth on that blue line is something that I question. And adding Alex Bieg is okay, but I love Bulldog, but he's a 7/8 defenseman.
He's depth.
Yeah, he always has been.
So I don't think that blue line. I mean, they also got Lazan, but I don't think that blue line is good enough.
We'll see. I think maybe you could argue St. Louis didn't do enough.
Considering where they're positioned right now, yeah, you can make that argument for sure.
So the low-hanging fruit is up north of you, Sean. I'm going to just move you, Chris. You don't live in Calgary anymore, but up north of you, Sean, the easy low-hanging
Toronto's
fruit.
Up north?
Well, we could touch on them in a minute, but I think the Oilers not getting a goalie again.
Kevin, are we talking about the Oilers? Or are we talking about the Leafs? It's the same problem.
Yeah.
Kyle Dubas put his job in the hands of Jack Campbell.
And Ken Holland put his job in hands of Mikko Koskinen. And Mike Smith.
I don't think it's quite as quite there. But
like generally speaking, yes, but I feel like Dubas is like on a much tighter noose than Holland is in that regard.
Well, the Leafs did get Giordano, and I think he will help. I don't think he's going to help as much as Leafs media is making this out to be. My God, they think that this guy's the 2008 Norris Trophy winner. He's not the same player, but he will help. Colin Blackwell was an underrated pickup. I think it's a guy that can play on your bottom six. and play all three positions. That was a really smart pickup. But the Oilers gave up a lot for Brett Kulak, known well by Glenn Gullickson. I guess that's where that connection is from, but not addressing goaltending when there was one available, and saying that when healthy, he trusts them. Man, I don't know how long that leash is on Ken Holland. I really don't, but we'll have to see.
I have a hypothetical question, and Canuck fans might be pissed off at me even asking about this. But let's say the Oilers decided to take a chance on Halak, but only if we paid the overage bonus that he earned from this season. Would Canucks fans agree to that?
No. The whole point of the moving Kulak is to get rid of that bonus.
And yeah, it really depends on his performance of late did not help his tradability. But I was just thinking, in the sense of, we all agree that they should be in the market for a goaltender, but they didn't.
Yeah. And in terms of the sellers, who did well? I feel like there's low-hanging fruit here.
Anaheim.
Capitalizing on the future?
Yeah, I actually do agree. I think it is Anaheim, and I'm not saying that to suck up to Dylan. I do agree with you. I think I'm interested. Everyone is pretty impressed with what Montreal got, but I want to see how they draft. Anaheim, I think, did very well. They got the best prospect, one of the few prospects, and some draft picks. So I don't know. I think Anaheim. I would put Anaheim ahead of Montreal if I could be. Sorry, Joel, but that's what I would do. But
yeah, I think those definitely are the top two for me. I'm trying to think who would come in third after them.
If it was a better organization, I would put Arizona third. But I just have a feeling that they're just going to fuck this all up anyway.
Because they always do.
They always do. Yeah. I think the acquisition of Jack McBain would be a good organization for a good pickup for a good organization. But the Arizona Coyotes do not show that to me. But I do like that signing of Carl Velmanka. I think he's a good goaltender. I'll say that. But we'll have to see what Arizona. They did some good things, but I don't trust them to keep up with it.
Because even the guys that they do draft and develop well still leave the franchise when they're at their most valuable.
Yeah.
So Arizona is always going to lose them or fuck it up somehow.
Getting Jack McBain's a good pickup for Arizona. Anaheim picked up 7 picks while Montreal picked up 6. And I would say Hellison's a better prospect than Justin Barron or Ty Smilananek. That being said, Montreal fleeced Edmonton on Brett Kulak. So I think Anaheim's probably your biggest winner right now, but they also had one of the more easy sort of sell jobs there.
They had the UFAs lined. The UFAs were lined up perfectly for them in that regard. Yeah,
they had 3 really good assets to sell.
Yeah.
So Montreal sold Lehkonen, but I hate that they couldn't keep. I hate that they couldn't keep him.
I feel like he's overrated. I feel like everyone is so high on this guy, and I don't see it.
He's got 13 goals and 29 points in 58 games, playing tough minutes. RFA. I think they could have gotten more, honestly.
So I just don't feel like he's I don't see him as a visible guy. I when I watch Montreal, when I watch him, I'm not like, man, that's a guy that I need to keep my eye on.
But there was talk about him, right? And I was surprised that they were able to get more for him. With that much talk about him, so Justin Barron in the second. That being said, I really like what Colorado did too.
Yep.
Going back to Byers, I really like what Colorado did.
Yeah, I think the Cogliano pickup is a good pickup. That's a good pickup as well. Yep.
As well as Manson.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're basically all in this season because they've got Burakovsky and Kadri, Nichushkin, all UFAs at the end of this season. Manson they picked up. Ryan Murray's a UFA. They need to figure out their goaltending after this season because Darcy Kemper needs a new deal. So they went all in without giving up too much. They didn't give up Byram.
No. And what does McKinnon do? When does McKinnon do?
Oh, 2 years from now?
Oh, I thought there was only 1 year left on that contract. My bad.
Yeah. After next season.
Okay.
So they're kind of all in this season, and then they have to figure out how to continue to keep this team together without blowing up any sort of cap space for McKinnon in the next year.
Yeah, because if anything, you have to long-term plan for that next McKinnon contract because he's getting paid.
Oh, he's getting 10 plus in what is it, July 7th or 8th that the free agency happens, or it's middle of July, somewhere around there. As soon as they're allowed to talk extension, they're getting that extension done with McKinnon this summer.
Yeah,
at least an $80 million contract. We all know it.
Yeah. By the way, talking about draft picks, they have 13 in the next 3 years. So, and they do not have the Avalanche, and they do not have a second round pick in the next 3 years.
Yeah, 13 when you can have a potential of 21. You start with 21.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, if you were back to that draft point, everyone is like, oh, look at the Colorado is obviously building something, and they're going beyond that draft pick thing. That's my point.
Yeah, but the other thing is, like, I feel like there's a missing context because everyone just looks at these big numbers. I don't think people quite realize that you start with 7 a season.
Yeah. No, I know. I understand.
Yeah.
Which
and also can I actually put a winner for this, like flat out winner?
Sure.
Kevin Weeks.
Yeah, he did really well. He cameraed like me. I don't think Tyler would have been very happy with his camera work throughout his entire process. I could see Tyler just like going, "Fix your headroom, dude."
That's why he has a producer and a professional camera person work, when he's doing NHL Network stuff.
Yeah, no,
Kevin Weeks definitely gets highlight of the day as he was this year's Frank Saravalli as far as the guy who broke everything.
Or at least a lot of the not necessarily ones. Broke it, but he made a spectacle of it just with his doing the video.
Yeah, he did. He was fun. He was fun. Daily
Face the memes that came from it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do a picture like that now in honor of Kevin Weeks. I mean, long cut. Like I didn't spend a lot of time at Sportsnet and TSN just because they focused so much on Toronto. Like they were at least practice. First, at least hour and a half of both of those shows were on the Leafs. Although Haley Salvan was really good on TSN. I do want to give her a shout out.
What I'm going to say in terms of that though is that it's the first hour and a half when you mean they start at like 7 a.m. Pacific.
When they're talking about the what was his name that went to Pittsburgh, Boulier. All you have to talk about is the Boulier deal at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just wasn't. It didn't captivate me. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, and like yeah.
That being said, Mike Johnston and Craig Button need to smarten the fuck up. The Twins do deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
What happened? I missed that.
But they said that they don't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. This is the Hockey Hall of Fame we're talking about. If you're talking about just NHL career, maybe you have a point.
No. You don't
I
even
said
have a
maybe.
point there.
I completely disagree, but maybe you have a point. But this is the Hockey Hall of Fame, so it includes all the international hockey as well. I'm sorry, but Craig Button, Mike Johnson, you're flat out fucking wrong on that.
That blows my mind that they have that opinion, because I normally respect those two guys.
Mm-hmm. So instead of saying what the next Team Canada roster was, they were humming and hawing about that and just making absolute fools of themselves.
And they brought that up to fill time?
Yep. I didn't watch it, but I saw the reactions. I'm like, yep, that's hilarious.
Oh, that's why
if Kevin fucking Lowe is a Hockey Hall of Famer, why the fuck aren't the Sedins?
Lowe is a tag along at best.
Look at us getting Graham, Mcewen mad. Anything else we need to touch on though?
Let's see here.
Nothing that's coming off the top of my head, but Sean might pull up something.
I don't think there's anything else that other than we touched a little bit on the clusterfuck that the Dadnoff trade is turning out to be.
Yes, Frank Saravelli did have a tweet. Let me just grab that here. Just wanted to get that out here because I just saw that. As best as I can glean, understand, Dadnoff seems to have properly filed 10-team no-trade list with Sens before July 1st, 2021 due date. Sens traded Dadnoff to Vegas on July 28th was the list, which was still valid, passed along to Vegas on trade call. And then it goes on to say, I'm told Vegas claimed they did not receive it from the Sens. Either way, Ducks are supposedly on Dadnoff's original 10-team no list, which should have blocked trade. I'd imagine there would be sufficient electronic evidence to prove an original list was submitted, all of which is to say it's 11:20 p.m. Eastern time, and there's still a deadline day trade that hangs in the balance from the 3 p.m. trade deadline, and it's actually critical for Vegas for salary cap purposes moving forward. Not an easy spot for Dadnoff to who earned the clause. So maybe I should take it back. Maybe this trade doesn't go through, but I'm going to assume it does. I still would lean that way, but going to be some controversy.
My opinion because they are run by lawyers and lawyers love gray areas that they can exploit. I'm with you on that, Kev. If they find a way to allow it to happen, they will allow it to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is a couple of significant issues here. It's Dadnoff did say no trade; he earned that right, and then this salary cap issue with Vegas, it's important for Vegas too, because LTR wins cups. Sorry, cap space wins cups. It's LTIR.
That, and I'm pretty sure Bettman is going to side with Foley over Dadnoff.
You're probably right.
Just wait till this is just gonna be a gong show. So,
unless he plays out the next week,
I think we'll have something definitive tomorrow about it.
Yeah, we'll have it in the news pack on Wednesday. Oh, by the way, I have to answer Dylan's question here because I think he wants to bet me on the one of the two not making the Western Conference Finals. I don't drink. I quit drinking, but we can do a soda if you want. But I have actually quit drinking, so
I will drink the beer if Kev wins.
There we go.
That.
How about me?
I'm physically close. I will be physically closer.
There we go. So I do have it on the good authority from Devin that I can announce this on Wednesday, 3 Pacific, 4 Mountain. Ryan Pinder from Sportsnet 960 will be joining us. So we will have that. Join us for that as we talk. We'll dig into the Flames a little bit more. The Yarncroc to Foley, Ryan Carpenter, newly member of the Calgary Flames. Just on a side note, we'll discuss that on Wednesday. I'll tease that for Wednesday. We'll leave it there. Let's leave it there. But join us on Wednesday. We'll have our news pack. We'll update you on the Dadnoff situation as well. How do we follow everyone?
I am Beardy Connect 03 on Twitter.
I am at Schneid's on most social media.
Tyler TNOBLE, Devin Gordhouse 09. I am KEVOLE. Shifts and Pucks on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as find us on the Area 51 Sports Network. And thanks everyone, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.